I was that kid that always took, really cool remote controls and took them apart to see how it worked. When I was growing up as a little kid, and we just talked about this earlier, I always said, why? Why? Hey, this is the way we do it. Why? I didn't care about the end result. I wanted to know the internals. I've always done that. So when it came to the restaurant industry, the ability to make really beautiful food, I learned from my grandma, and I was always, why, grandma? Why do you do it this way instead of this way? When I got into the restaurant industry, I was thinking, okay, I'm not educated. I didn't go to school for it. So I started from the bottom. I worked at my grandma's and then some other places, but I really started from Wendy's.
Order number 8. Your burger's ready. Number 8.
I worked my way up to becoming a big-time district corporate chef. When I tell you I was prepared for this restaurant, I was literally prepared from this restaurant. I understood and did everything it took to get from fast food to fine dining and everything else. So I had a portfolio of every type of scenario you could possibly throw at a restaurant, and I was ready for it.
When did you say, hey, I think I could make money doing this? I've only seen you nervous when your cooks don't make something exactly how you tell them.
I wouldn't call that nervous. That's kind of like, yeah, you're about to feel the wrath of me. There's no nervous. I'm like, you've seen me in my truest, rawest form. I don't hold anything back. I don't try to sugarcoat anything at work. It's one of those that what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
It's one of those that I don't hide anything. If I look pissed because I'm fucking pissed.
Yeah, you wear your emotions on your sleeve.
And I need to, and the reason I do that is because my team needs to understand the energy level. Like, if you feel this bad energy between us, it's because if you messed up, you need to feel it. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to get after you. You should just feel it and say, yeah, I fucked up.
Yeah.
And chef's upset.
Yeah, well, I could see that. But so we already started, but for those that don't know, this is Business Under Fire. I'm Tommy Bonner. Our guest today, we're really fortunate to have Ernest. His name's Ernest Servantes. He's with Burnt Bean Barbecue, which 2 weeks ago they just won Texas Monthly's #1 barbecue restaurant in Texas. And so he's been riding that wave for 2 weeks now, and we're going to go, since this is Business Under Fire, we're going to get the whole backstory on how this occurred and, kind of Ernest professional life and where he's gone. And the neat part about what we got going on today is I've known Ernest for about 3 years now, and I see him often because we eat at the restaurant, and his business partner, Dave, is one of my buddies, and we have some mutual friends. So I've actually been taking notes for a while to ask some of the questions and hear some of the stories and share some of the things that Ernest and I have talked about over the past few years. So you're going to get a real good insight into his stories and background and the way that he thinks instead of just thinking on the fly with the podcast. So Ernest, I'm super happy to have you. Welcome, man.
Oh, thanks. I'm really excited. I know we've been trying to do this for a couple of months already. So the opportunity came up and you invited me again. I think it was yesterday. And you're like, dude, I got your tacos and I got everything being here at 9. So I was excited. I was ready to finally do this with you and have a great hour and a half of a session of getting to know the chef or the AKA the Pope of BBQ.
Yeah, the Pope of BBQ. And we have been talking about this for a while, and then we decided we're gonna probably wait until we see what happened. And so we're finally here. All my notes are typically on my notepad, but I've been taking them in my phone forever. So it sounds like there's a Robinson R-66 jet helicopter firing up next door, but we'll work through it. You know, at the end of the day, you guys are running a business, a restaurant.
Right.
And one of the things that I like is when people find out that I know of you, I tell them that you know the restaurant business from the mop sink to the measuring cups.
Right.
How'd you get started in the restaurant business?
Man, I've always been intrigued by food. I think that's what led me into the restaurant industry. Grandma had a restaurant, and I always liked to hang out there, and I think it was because of the food. But at the same time, what got me really turned on to the restaurant industry is the ability to create something beautiful. I was that kid that always took, really cool remote controls and took them apart to see how it worked. When I was growing up as a little kid, and we just talked about this earlier, I always said, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Hey, this is the way we do it. Why? I didn't care about the end result. I wanted to know the internals. I've always done that. So when it came to the restaurant industry, the ability to make really beautiful food, I learned from my grandma, and I was always, why, Grandma? Why do you do it this way instead of this way, or why that? So when I got into the restaurant industry, I was thinking, okay, I'm not educated. I didn't go to school for it. So I started from the bottom. I worked at my grandma's and then some other places, but I really started from Wendy's, in my teens. And I worked my way up to becoming a big-time district corporate chef. And everything in between. So when I tell you I was prepared for this restaurant, I was literally prepared from this restaurant. I understood and did everything it took to get to that. And what I mean by that is any industry from fast food to corporate setting of places like Outback Steakhouse and the Aussie family when I worked, to Chili's, and then finally into Sodexo Corporation, which was more of a big, bigger volumes. I went from, and then everything in between. So it was, fine dining and everything else. So I had a portfolio of every type of scenario you could possibly throw at a restaurant, and I was ready for it.
Which you make a good point. So if somebody's going to go work at Wendy's, they need to soak all of this up and learn why this is going on. Right. Why are we temping our food? Why are we doing this?
Right.
Because you're going to need it when you get to another point of like a TLU.
Right. And the funny part is that the one thing I really took away from Wendy's was, yes, it's a fast food restaurant, but what it was mostly about that I learned and what I took away from that place was hold times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was one of those that you learn that, hey, they don't just throw things away. It's not all fresh. It's like, how long is it possibly there that it's still good, but it can sit there for a long time. So that was a thing.
These are all foundations for the restaurant. I mean, you have daily checks on, hourly checks on temps. I saw that. I saw the blade of that helicopter just sticking out barely on the hangar when I went out there.
Yeah.
I go, it's gonna get noisy. So the foundation that you got on asking why at all of these places, and you weren't asking why me.
Right.
Because you started at Wendy's.
Right. I was always a why, and that's the one thing I think that led me to what I fell in love with, which is the restaurant industry. Is every job that I had, mind you, I think I can only I want to be honest with you. I think I've only had like 6 jobs in my lifetime, and that's why I wanted to make sure that I covered every possible nook and cranny of each job I had at each location, that I can get the best out of it. It's kind of like a leech. Once you sucked it dry, then you moved on.
Yeah.
And that I meant from understanding from trucks to why the business runs this way, learning and understanding your notes. What I learned was the most from, places like Outback is that you made a daily journal so you can look back into it a year from today. Okay, why were we so busy this day? And why this happened? And there goes the word why. So that the word why goes all the time in my philosophy is why.
Forecasting in restaurants is a major thing that people might overstep or overlook. And if you've got a manager or an owner that doesn't know that on Memorial Day we're slammed, or spring break or graduation, you will get caught at your restaurant understaffed with the line out the door, and you'll fail.
Right. And not only that, forecasting, like you were talking about, not necessarily has to do with dates of Father's Day, i.e. why were we so busy that day? Was there a festival going on in the city? But the forecasts that I do now that are internally are, okay, the crops of, corn right now are high. The droughts are working high. So I know the volume of the beef is going to go up. I look at how the market is in the beef, because if they were underfed, that's not going to have a lot of marbling on our end. So the beef briskets are going to be a little bit shadier this time. And then what happens is the yield are smaller, so we get smaller briskets. And that tells me, okay, when we have smaller briskets, they're going to be a little bit tougher. So I look at all the way down to how much the beef is, how they're being fed, and how the droughts affect us as well.
That's one of the things that I want people to know about you as well, is just what you said on the beef and the rain and the fanatical specifics of what you do on every single item that you touch.
Right.
Is insane.
Right. And that goes with chicken, and that goes with pork products as well. Because at the end of the day, a true chef, and mind you, this is a chef-driven restaurant, not a guy that just has a passion of barbecue. Chef-driven restaurants, the reason why chefs, especially some of the most notable great chefs, they go out to the farms and they go out to the ranches to see their product. Well, unfortunately, I don't have access to a lot of that stuff, but what I do is I look it up on the internet, on their business sites, and make sure everything's good, from bird flus to swine. All that, sometimes the market, just like any kind of, a commodity, gets told, you get those forecasts, and then that's where we, there's sometimes where we're like, all right, we got to push more of this product than that because we're not making any money.
And it's been a wild 5 years for the market too. There's nobody that could predict what's been going on with this stuff, and beef and chicken soaring just out of the blue.
Yeah, bird flu, and then two of the top, that was last year, two of the top chicken farms, burned down. So that's even with eggs. We're selling 50-cent eggs, a couple of months ago. But, ever since the burnt bean has started, we've had so many adversities going towards us, from COVID to, it's even, I tell people, even the elections hurt, hurt and help the business too. So, understanding that and trying to keep this thing afloat is a challenge, but yet I was ready for it. So it doesn't affect me as much. I think the things that affect me more are the things that I can't control.
Well, you had the foundation for the restaurant. That was 20 years of work, right?
Right.
20 years of foundational work to be able to get this, to get Burnt Bean to run and operate it like it does.
Right.
And then you really started aiming and hitting the arrow on your craft,
right,
which was getting into the specifics. But you guys y'all don't just hit the nail on the head on beef. It's everything. And last night about 4:30 in the morning, I hope you don't start. Well, I hope you do start some the sweet potatoes that you guys do. Like, it's not just your, it's everything in there, and you have a way of shaping that towards people's tastes that you have told me.
Right.
Can you explain how you as a chef do that?
It's all about I think what separates us from a lot of, I say separates us from all different kinds of barbecue joints is that we have that mentality of it's all about the small detail. Not only do we try to harvest the sweet potatoes, we don't just get 50 pounds of sweet potatoes and say, okay, they're all different sizes. No, we literally go and select the most consistent size that we want. And then, we make our own crushed, pecan butter, and then we have homemade fucking marshmallows. I mean, who makes and it's just for one side item.
I know.
It's not like we're going to use those marshmallows for anything else. It's just this one entree, and then with the marshmallows, the person, the pastry chef that makes them, she cuts out half of the sugar and adds honey because honey likes to be with sweet potatoes. So it's those small little details that we do just for one item is what separates us, because everything, I mean, we make our own fucking bacon just for our green beans.
Yes.
Like, who does that? You could just conveniently go to the store or go to your food purveyor and say, hey, I just need bacon for green beans. No, we make our own bacon because you know what? We take those extra steps because all our entrees, we don't want to be compared. And I think that's the main philosophy at the Burnt Bean is, there is no other place like Burnt Bean.
There's not, and that's the thing that's the whole, one of the main points of my podcast today was the detail that you encompass as a chef.
Right.
And I don't know the right word for it. It's you're crazy about your products.
Right.
And you just explained it in a fucking sweet potato.
Right. I always say my obsession led to my passion. So, yeah, and we do that because at the end of the day, we're at the Burnt Bean. We're not here to give you a meal. We're here to give you an experience of a lifetime. It's like taking some shrooms and listening to The Dark Side of the Moon. It's one of those type of things like what just happened. I want you to leave quiet and get in your car with your family or your wife or your spouse or your best friend, and you're just quiet and you're like, what the fuck just happened?
And that's a wonderful point for the experience that you have at Burnt Bean. And I wanted to we talked about this before the podcast, but a lot of people have been bitching and complaining about the line at Burnt Bean, and the line pre-Texas Monthly has been maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And you and I kind of discussed that they're missing the point. Mm-hmm. The point of this experience of what you just described starts hours before.
Right.
It starts with a car drive from somewhere to Seguin with you and your buddy. Mm-hmm. And then it continues when you go to Burnt Bean and you go to downtown Seguin and you see this older city that's just beautiful. Right. That frankly, there was nothing going on in the middle of Seguin before Burnt Bean. And you could argue that if you want, but there wasn't what's going on now. Right. And then you go wait in line. And that's one of the things that I talk to you and Dave about sometimes, because when you guys are at the front counter, you sometimes forget of what's going on in line. Mm-hmm. And when you walk in line, there are people, there's a camaraderie there. They're all there to try the best barbecue. And guess what? They all drove from somewhere because they didn't come from Austin Street and Seguin.
Right.
They all drove from Houston. They drove from Dallas. We've stood by people that flew in from Australia.
Yeah.
You've had people walk in with their rolling bags from
Germany.
Yeah. And it's, have you been to Burnt Bean? What are you looking forward to trying? I want to do this. I want to do that. I hope they're not out of this. Where are you guys from? This dude has donuts. You want some donuts? You want some coffee? The line is not it is a living, breathing thing that I get enjoyment out of seeing and participating in. And so when somebody tells me about the line, I said, well, you had 5 years, number one.
Right. Yeah, you did.
Number two, you're missing the whole point.
Right.
Then you're going to get the experience of a guy that is picking sweet potatoes out of a bag,
right,
making their own bacon, making their own brown sugar.
Yeah. Yeah, and people don't, what we do, and it's not like we came up with the whole line issue. I think really Franklin's is the one that really brought that out. And I remember the first time, and it's called, doing the experience at Franklin's, is getting in line. And this is, you got to remember, this is today's society where everybody's hooked on their books. Yeah. And this is what I call the book, that they have that. And imagine just getting in line and just starting a conversation with someone you don't know right in front of you and behind you. And you actually put down your phone and you talk about, why you're there, where you're from. Then you end up talking about other barbecue joints
every time.
And then after that, you start talking about kids. And then by the time y'all leave the line, I see it every day. They're like, hey, man, it was great meeting you, Tommy. Hey, good luck with your daughter, her soccer game. And you're getting to the point where you get to know the guy's life or the woman's life. And then you become Facebook friends.
Yeah.
And then you end up you make a relationship with someone that you had no idea and you didn't know for 24 hours. And then you made friends for the past hour and a half, and then you become close. And
I
it's
know.
really cool. I've had situations where people have told me, like, hey, Ernest, he goes, do you remember us? And I'm like, I'm like, dude, I've seen thousands of people. He's like, hey, he goes, this guy, me and Tommy, we came here 2 years ago. We sat in line together. Now we make it a yearly trip that we meet here every year to come and hang out. And the reason why is because, they met in line and they became friends. And that's the cool part. But, some people, and that's not necessarily small-minded people or small-town people. It's just people in general that get off on just being an asshole and say, oh, I'm not ever going to wait in line, or how selfish you are why don't you get 6 cutters? And that's not all my business profile. No. My business model was not about making it like a Rudy's or, one of those that it's just a cattle call and you're in and out. I wanted to make it personable, an experience of a lifetime, that the food is the show, but at the same time, I'm giving you undivided attention on the block.
And undivided attention is there's a pot of gold at the end of the line also, because 9 times out of 10 or 7.
That's crazy.
Hey, the AC's working in here now, so you don't need that.
Yeah.
Before the AC, we would have been putting those on our head.
Oh, I bet.
But, a pot of gold at the end of the line is the fact that many times you are working on the meat block.
Yeah.
Ernest Servantes is there slicing brisket on the meat block.
Right.
And you are giving these people a few minutes of your life.
Right.
Every single time that they come through.
Right.
And that's another bit of the experience that they're not going to get. You got your suspenders on half the time. And to be able to have words with you for them is great. And it's a good experience.
And a lot of the people that come and visit me have seen me and have been with me the whole time through my journey. And what I mean by that is they saw me, I guess the first time they'll ever see me is when I was probably on Chopped or Pit Masters, which was like 10, 12 years ago. And they've seen the journey to where I've gotten to today. And I think they felt like they were invested as well. It's like being a fan of a band that started off at the small venues, and now they're in selling out stadium arenas.
Yeah.
And you've been there, so you feel like you're part of the family, or you were part of the whole investment. And that's what a lot of people do. Like, I see dads in there, like grown ass men, and they're like gogging, like they're like, holy shit, he's right in front of me. Like,
yes.
And they're so nervous, and I could feel it.
I was going to ask you.
And the wife is she's just giddy, and she's like, all right, he's not going to tell you, Ernest, but he wants a picture with you. You know what I mean? Like, and then you take a picture and they're like, oh man, where are you from? And you tell him, and then he just goes off and just tells you all about your life.
Yeah.
My life. Like, this dude fucking knows me. And then he just like, wow, I remember when you did this, and I remember when you did that. And then on the show, and then, he asked me, how's your daughter doing, or how's your son doing? And it's like, man, this guy really knows me. And it's really cool. And to give him that undivided attention, and then you take a picture with him, and sometimes you'll go and visit him at his table, and you just made his day. And his wife, sometimes will say, hey, we save money to come here.
Oh, man.
So, sometimes they're not financially, willing to, don't get me wrong, the burnt bean is not that crazy expensive, but to some, they had to save money. So you make them an experience of a lifetime.
Well, I want to stop you right there, because you said something else that I want people to know about you. A couple weeks ago, I said, well, Ernest, what are you going to do if you win? Are you going to raise prices a little bit and, kind of not take advantage of this, but this is a business, right? We've got to feed us first. And your answer was no. I want everybody to be able to come that can afford to come eat my barbecue. You said, I want to feed everyone.
Right.
And to me, that just says a whole lot about you. And you just said it again without saying it. And I want people to know that's how you feel. And there's a lot of people that would just
Oh yeah. Yeah. You see it. You see it all the time. A lot of people, there's a saying, with the barbecue industry, if you hit top 10, you can jack up the prices.
Yeah.
You can give them top 10 prices. And he goes, when you hit one, you can give them number one prices, and they're not going to argue because you are number one.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. I think, first of all, me and Dave don't come from rich families. We're very modest guys. And, we at times we never had a lot of stuff. So I wouldn't necessarily say poor, but being comfortable in our lifestyle is different than being someone that has a lot of money that's comfortable. At the end of the day, I'm here to serve people. Yes, we're here to make money, but at the same time, I want to feed all demographics.
Yeah.
Middle class, lower class, and rich class. But yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing. If people do even complain about the price, the other thing is I've seen you there at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah. Well, now it's 1.
Oh my God.
I get there at 1 now.
That's in the evening.
Yeah. They call it evening. It's called morning. It's bad when you have you're across the street from the bars and they're going crazy still, and you're grinding it out now. So ever since the past 2 weeks, I get there about 1:30. I used to get there at 3:30. So now I get there at 1 because it takes me 2 hours to load up all the pits and get them started.
Holy crud.
So, yeah.
I want to go back to where you're talking about, you made a really good analogy with the people that have been supporting you since day one. And they are kind of like the bands. They have to tell their friends, no, my buddy Ernest and Dave are burning this great barbecue over here. Y'all need to come over here. Right. So they've been getting people to buy tickets to your show. And they did watch you grow. And the first time it was interesting because I met you a few years ago, and I had watched a cooking show, Chopped or Barbecue, and you had used the outside of the ribeye to win the competition.
Yeah, the pinatas.
So for the past 10 years, I've been saving. What do you call it?
Pinalas?
The pinalas.
Yeah.
I've been saving that for last of my ribeye, and I didn't know until about a year and a half after I met you. I said, Ernest, did you use those? He goes, yeah, that was me. That was blah. I go, holy crap.
That's the best part of the whole damn steak.
I know.
So, yeah. And yeah, I like it. Like I said, I just love to. That's the why it's like the best part of the ribeye. No one eats the eye. It's the outside, the spinalis.
It's great.
It's the best part.
I know it's great. And I had no idea. I go, I'm going to try what this guy said. And then I knew you, and I somehow made the connection while we were at, I call it the bean, but that was going on. When you guys are thinking of a dish or to make a meal, how long does it take you, and what are you doing on coming up with this? What are the inner workings of your mind to get that plate of food to somebody?
Every dish that's out there at the Bean has been R&D'd for at least 6 to 8 months before even attempt to put it out there. Everything from even the huevo rancheros to the only. Okay, I'll rephrase that. Everything's been executed, and the reason why is when you get to this level, you can't just go off on a whim. You can't put something on the menu that you just thought of 30 minutes ago and hopefully everybody will love it, because there's always stuff. There's always cracks on this sculpture. So it's R&D. One is, okay, it's a great idea. And even before I throw the thought to Dave, if I have an idea, I go ahead and this is typical of me. I bring it out, see when it would be good. Would it be in the fall? Would it be good in spring? Would it be good in summer or in the wintertime? Number two, okay, let's cost it out. Let's see how much it's going to cost us and how much can I realistically get it now. If I can't be in my realm of, I call it middle class pricing, then I really don't put it out there. And then three, once it gets to the third stage, I go and start making it. And then and Dave gets mad at me because I don't let him try it. He's like, dude, let me try it. I'm like, no. Because what happens is, as the chef, if I have an idea of what it should be, I don't need any kind of criticism or any kind of advice by saying, hey, maybe you should add this and that, because you don't know what my vision is.
Oh, yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't want you to be like, hey, well, let's put some sour cream on it. I'm like, no, because that just defeats the purpose. And then if Dave is my partner or my wife, if I say no to them, they feel insulted, say, hey, I have say so. but you don't understand. I have this vision of what it's supposed to taste like, layers, until I figured it out, and then I like it. Is when I introduce it to Dave, to Anthony, to my wife, and be like, all right, try this, and they're like, oh, I like that, or is it too spicy? That's when I start asking the questions like, what do you think? Is it too spicy? Is it too this? Because I know what the answer is going to be. I want to hear that answer, the answer I'm looking for, and they'll tell me. And then, all right, now let's roll it out and all the good stuff.
Do these flavors, you have a unique background that I love the Mexican American heritage. So burnt bean and well, barbecue in general is kind of an American tradition. But I had seen where you said, that's the oldest form of cooking, which it is. But the burnt bean doesn't just go with American. You're from Uvalde. So these flavors that come in are more than just thinking of a dish. They go back to your grandparents.
Yeah, they go back to grandparents, or even experiences in life that your dad might have been cooking something at the ranch or in the backyard, and you elevate it. I tell people a lot of the huevo ranchero, the sauce is not what my grandma did. It was based off her recipe, but I have to elevate everything. Everything is elevated. And that's what we do. I'll get inspired by something that we ate at my dad's or grandpa's. I remember growing up, and what I believe what it used to taste like in my perception, and that's what I do. And that comes from my culture and my family background. But nowadays, you have to. What I've learned and what I'm doing now is I'm bringing multicultural, dishes that are coming from other cultures. And, that's what we're doing at the Bean, the Moroccan spice lamb ribs from South Africa, the Korean beef ribs. We're doing all kinds of stuff. We just did a smoked chicken and rice that they do in China. And we're just bringing all these flavors in. We're bringing them now into not just Tex-Mex. I never wanted to be labeled as just the Tex-Mex kind of guy, even though I am, and the restaurant realistically is. We're trying to move away from that and bring all things in. And the Bean is more of a melting pot of cultural smoking influences to the society of Bean.
I'll tell people that if you want to keep up with me, it's going to be pretty difficult and you're going to have to work your ass off. So good luck on that. But from what you just said, if they want to keep up with you and try to compete with you in what you're putting out, good luck to them.
Yeah, I tell people this, and I've told this to anybody. You might be smarter than me. You might have more resources than me, and you might be more rich than me, but you'll never outwork me.
No.
You know what I mean?
Oh, it's you guys have a interesting concept on the menu that I think is funny. You put a name with everything on the menu. I think is it the Cactus Jack taco? Well, how do y'all come up with those?
So, I always remember growing up, we used to go to these taco houses, and they wouldn't just say, I want a chorizo, bean, barbacoa, potato, egg taco. No, they would call it the Tommy. You know what I mean? Because it's easier. You'll easily remember the Tommy compared to the Cactus Jack that has potatoes, sausage, brisket. It's got salsa. It's got some kind of ranchero sauce. It's got all this stuff. And you're reading all that crap, and you're like, yeah, I want this taco. No, I'd rather just call it the Cactus Jack. And you'll always remember it.
Yeah.
Easy names, like the Cactus Jack, the Blake, the Tejano, the Brass Monkey.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Things like that. We used to have one called the Billie Jean. And it was after this. My friend sent me this YouTube about this band in Mexico, and they were stealing Billie Jean from Michael Jackson, but they would say Billie Jean, and it was so funny. But I was like, that is the coolest, catchy name. So when we opened the Bean, we actually had a Billie Jean sandwich, and I've been thinking about bringing it back, and that was a banger, and but we haven't had the.
That's another point I want to make to people, though, when they're thinking about going to Burnt Bean for the food. Yes, you have the pork chops. Yes, you got the brisket. Yes, you got the turkey. But do not skip on something like the Brass Monkey, or don't skip on the Cactus Jack. Like, I would suggest that you get what you went there for, a slice or two of each, and then order something, because that's part of the masterpiece that's coming out of the Bean. And the Brass Monkey's funny because our buddy, y'all have, not only do they have a name for this sandwich, they have a nickname for it, the Sleeper.
Oh yeah, the Sleeper, yeah.
Because what's on the Brass Monkey?
So it has the mac and cheese, and then it's got a link of sausage on there and tons of chopped brisket. and the thing weighs like 1.5 pounds.
Yeah.
It's just massive. And I see these guys, I see women, and I don't think women have any concept that what it looks like until they see it. And they're like, "Oh, I'll take a brass monkey," and then they get it and they're like, "Shit," and they end up getting a fork and knife, and it's literally a barbecue, a 1 meat plate or 2 meat plate on a bun.
It is. And our buddy Christian Bertling, he's a blind guy. He got this brass monkey, and he ate the whole thing. He's a foodie, probably because of his dad, but now he jokes about it all the time, just being called the sleeper because there was so much of it. But man, it was a good thing. But the point again is, if you go to Bean and you wait in line, I would get your 3 things that you came there for and then order something else, because it's taken me several visits to learn about, the brass monkey, the Blake, the sweet potatoes. I mean, my favorite meal of the year is Thanksgiving and the sweet potatoes that you get there, and I can get them every week at the Bean. So don't skip on all the other stuff. I wanted to talk, because we're on Business Under Fire, I wanted to talk to you about some business, stuff on how you guys operate. And you won a championship. They gave you a $50,000 check.
Right.
What did that do for you in business? Is that where you bought your first pit?
Yeah. I tell people, if I didn't win, it goes back to, my whole goal was to have the Burnt Bean. But realistically, I didn't come from family with any kind of capital, as well as we didn't have anything. We had, your typical blue collar job, and we're typical middle class. My wife and I, she's a teacher, so we didn't have that seed money, as I call it, to invest. So the opportunity arose to be on a show, and the end game was $50,000, as winner takes all. And I gave it my best. And I tell people, when you're not raised with money, you're hungry. Mm-hmm. And when you're hungry, you will do anything it takes to get to the next level. And I mean anything. And I had this opportunity right in a shiny silver platter. All I had to do was bust my balls and really be creative to beat the best of the best. And at that time, those people that were was competing against.
Who were those people?
They were all like the back in the day of the most influential people in barbecue. These guys are world champions. They've beaten Iron Chefs, and their portfolio was huge. You can Google them, and like I said in other things, you can Google these people, and they have cookbooks and countless TV appearances. And then there's just this fat Mexican from South Texas that just was hungry.
I like that you said they Googled you and nothing came up.
They were like, and it was funny because it wasn't them that were Googling, it was their publicist.
Oh,
their public relation. Hey, my publicist wants to know, is your name spelled like this? Because they're trying to, who are you? And they were like, I think what the Food Network did is pretty cool, is that they had a David versus all those Goliaths.
They did.
And
how did they pick you on that?
And the reason why they picked me, I think, is because they needed someone from Texas. And at the time, I was one of the best cookers in Texas. So my reputation in Texas as being one of the best, outshine as competition. So they're like, oh, let's put this guy on here. No one really knows who he's about, but he's really good in Texas.
Take me back to that first fire that you made for your first competition. What was?
It was. I'll always remember. We were in Canyon Lake at a 55-gallon barrel pit, and I was in awe because I've never been in a competition before. And you had all these rigs, elaborate rigs, triple axle, double axle rigs, and 50-foot buses that people were staying in. And I had my truck with a mattress in the back. I had a HEB barrel pit, if you know what those are, and a Weber, and I was just in awe. I was so intimidated. My wife's like, he goes, I'll always remember my wife. I was like, babe, we're going to get our ass kicked. And she goes, babe, everybody's cooking one brisket. Everybody's cooking one slab of ribs. Everybody's cooking a chicken. It doesn't matter how big your grill is. You only can put one brisket in it, and you have yours, and you do what you do at home. And we won.
Holy shit.
And I was crying because I think the reason why I was thinking, a lot of people don't know this, my first competition, I got so emotional. It's not because I won and I got emotional. I won because my dad, the one that really wasn't too crazy about me doing this, because I told him my end game, he wasn't too crazy about it, to show him right off the bat that I was good at this. Like, as a parent, you want the best for your children, but when you're throwing something at him that he's like, what? You want to do what?
But
So it was one of those. So when I won, it was like, I told you, and it's just starting. And after that, it's been a wild ride.
and you won how many cooking competitions?
I can't tell you, man.
Can't even count.
Yeah, I know 55 grand championships, but that's just the ones that were sanctioned. Those aren't the ones that before I was doing, I had over 700 trophies. We had
You had 700 trophies.
700 trophies, give or take maybe 30. You know those big trash, when you remodel homes, those big things that on the flatbed they drop down.
Yeah.
We filled 2.5 of those with just trophies.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think about with you is that you started out to win a cooking competition, and you've always been goal oriented to get to number one.
Right. I always had goals.
And then you start getting the Michelin stuff, which I love the sign on that front door.
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
pretty
such a good spot for it.
a
I think
flex.
a Texas, well, I don't make suggestions for people's business, you know that,
Right.
but a Texas monthly thing right there would look cool.
Yeah.
So you've always been chasing those trophies and getting them, and then now you got to Texas monthly, which last night while I was thinking, dude, you won the Super Bowl. You won the Super Bowl of barbecue. There's no bigger.
There isn't.
There's none.
No.
And that's a big fucking deal. And when has it even set in? Or
Everybody tells me now, last year and the years before, it's always been, are you going for the Texas Monthly? Are you going for one? Are you going for one? Are you going for one? And I'm like, yes. And then you get it, and now everybody's like, now what? Now what? Now what? Now what? Because that's the pinnacle. And I tell people, the one thing no one has ever asked me, and I told this to someone, I don't know if I told you the other day, I get a lot of time in my hands to think about things, but the one thing no one's ever asked me, I've done countless documentaries, podcasts, and everything. No one's ever asked me, what's your end game with the burnt bean? Mm-hmm. No one's asked me that. Everybody's like, are you going to get one? Because that's what everybody perceives as the ultimate, the holy grail is the Texas Monthly one, which it is in everybody's eyes. But in my eyes, there was something bigger. And no one ever asked me, what's your end game? And, I'll tell you, I've told this only, and my wife only knows this, not even my kids. My end game is, do you know who Thomas Keller is?
no.
Okay, Thomas Keller is probably the best chef, American chef ever in the history of American cuisine. He had a restaurant called, he still does, called the French Laundry. And they always ask him, why don't you have 5 French laundries so successful? He goes, there's only going to be only one French Laundry. And that's the best restaurant. I'm telling you, it's got like 25 3-star Michelin awards. He has over I don't know, don't quote me on this, but 20 James Beard awards. For a man to have that, to have the French Laundry is synonymous to American cuisine, the best of America. Mm-hmm. I want to be the French Laundry of barbecue. I want to have that. Okay, I've gotten he just got all the awards. Now it's maintaining that status as when they talk about American barbecue, they're going to be talking about the only place is the burnt bean. Right now it's Franklin's or, other places in, America. But at the end of the day, when it comes to when I retire, I want the burnt bean to be the French Laundry of American barbecue.
I have
That's where I want to. That's my end game. It's like if someone comes from around the world or someone doesn't know about Texas barbecue or just American barbecue in general, what the first person when they think of barbecue is the Burnt Bean Company.
Well, you're doing a great job working on it, and I have no doubt. I wish I could get the point across of how just detailed you are on every single thing that goes out, every brisket that goes out. And it's Thomas Keller. That guy's got to be the same way.
Yeah, he is. And it's funny because
have you met him?
No, there's 2 guys that I want to meet in my lifetime, and one of them is my hero, one of my heroes, and then the other one is just Thomas Keller. He's a god. But Francis Mallman is my hero. You know what I mean when it comes to the barbecue. But going back to what you said about structure, yesterday a guy came up to me when I was walking my tables. He goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead." What what part of what service did you do? Were you a Marine? Were you an Army? What part of the military were you? I'm like, I was not. He goes, you are so structured. This place is structured like someone that was in the military. I said, well, it has to be like that. He goes, I really thought you went to the service. I'm like, no, dude, I didn't go to the service, man. But yeah, and because he goes, it's run like, it's run the right way. He goes, you can tell the difference between when it's structurally run, and I thought it's run like a person with a military background.
It is, and you wear your heart on your sleeve. And when I have seen Ernest throw away plates of food because of one thing off, but your team. That's one thing I want to get to is your team is fantastic too. What does it take to get on at Burnt Bean?
For every 50, we'll find one. And we don't start anybody off. We don't give them the forms, no forms, nothing. You get paid contract labor the first week, and it's two things. We're testing you out, and you're testing us out. I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want you to waste mine. After the first week, we'll see how you run as a team. With the team, you understand. A lot of people don't understand. They've heard of the bean, but then when you get there and you see how much business we are and how demanding it is, a lot of people are like, F this, I'm out of here, or yes, I love it, and keep on going.
That happens to us at down in Port Aransas at the restaurants. They want to come in and cook or help or do whatever, and then they see what happens for 100 and something days, and y'all are 350 days a year now, and they go, well, I was kind of looking for a laid back job. You're at the wrong place.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's some people that are built for it and some people that aren't. And you can see it. I have kids that are 16 that you can tell they're going to be natural born leaders when they get older. I tell people that anybody that starts their life in the restaurant industry can excel in anything in life. They can become CEOs of other companies because the demands and the expectations of working in high pressure situations will build character, and it'll help you that, in the future, that when you go and get a normal job or whatever, it's going to be so much easier. Yeah. And
dealing with customers.
Right, dealing with customers. And not only that, what in certain scenarios, so if you got someone upset, if you are low on this, be able to think quick on your feet. And that builds character. We have so many employees that have left when they were in high school, and now they're in college, and they're just succeeding in life, and we love to see that. But yeah, to work at the Bean, it's not that hard. You just got to work hard. You got to have accountability, just like my philosophy, and you got to have pride, and you got to take pride, and you got to just don't cut corners. And I find that out, and I tell this to all my employees, and I tell this to all my employees. One, you can't lie to me because I know it. You got to understand that I created everything. And number two is take pride in what you do. And three, if you're not feeling for the day, just go home. Because we have so much pressure to be perfect every day that just one bad mood, you being in a bad mood or just you're not feeling it can just destroy something with just one post of a social media comment, and it might hurt you.
You have the pressure to perform with every slice that goes out.
Right. I always tell them,
especially now, you really, you guys might have been under the microscope before, which you were,
right?
But now they're going over every square centimeter of what you produce with a fine tooth comb.
Oh yeah, because of the perception, mind you. Okay, before we were number one in Texas, we had 4 James Beard knobs. 2 of them were for best chef of the country. We have a Michelin, but at the same time, everybody's going to be scrutinizing your food and I do the same thing. I went to the number 1 restaurant in the world and the number 2, and I went in there with like a fine tooth comb. And at first I didn't understand, but then after eating a couple of courses, I get it. And that's the way it is here. And that's why I tell Dave, we're only as good as the next brisket we cook. Yeah. And because then you throw in a 3-hour wait, I'm going to be even more scrutinized.
Can you imagine getting like a rough, tough piece of brisket?
It won't ever get to that because when I feel it, if I'm cutting it's not good, it goes back into the warmer. Yeah. And I'll use it for chop. And that's one thing about me. Every brisket goes through my hand from the trimming to the cutting. I'm going to feel it, and I can tell you if it's going to feel good. If it isn't, it goes right back in that warmer. Yeah. And I'll use it for something else.
Well, your crew, you recently got invited to go to Australia.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to you a little bit, and you were a little bit nervous, but y'all brought in a guy that had been there before. And I think I went to eat there a couple of times. And man, the crew, I wasn't watching details. I wouldn't know if there's enough salt or pepper or whatever. Right. But man, everything seemed like it went completely flawless.
Right.
I'm sure there were a couple things that they might have called you on, but it was fantastic every single time. And so every time I walk in there, it's not just hats off to you and Dave. It's hats off to the whole crew because it takes an army.
Yeah. We were blessed to have the team we have right now. And I think there's only 12 of us. Yeah. And that includes our part-timers. The core group is 8. You know what I mean? And we're cranking out some of the best food in the country. It's
the best barbecue.
Yeah. And I think my team, and I think that's the one thing I remember becoming a sous chef. And when the executive chef needs to leave, let's say to vacation or to something, you wanted him to go and say, hey, everything's going to be okay because I got you.
Yeah.
And because you want to prove to the chef that you're just as good as him. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think my team is doing right now is they want to prove that, you don't need to be here, chef. We'll take care of it.
What has all of this done for you, personally with the expansion of your community, the barbecue people? What has Burnt Bean done for you in letting you get invited to Australia or the events? How has that been for you?
It's been really cool. Places like Australia and Brazil and all them, before even the Burnt Bean was around, they've always invited me to the things because who I was as a barbecue celebrity. But now they want us even more because of our status of the restaurant. It does good. We just take it by a grain of salt. Me and Dave we're more homebodies. We'd rather just be at home. A perfect day or a perfect vacation is just being with my family. I'm not too crazy about just going to Australia like we did. We had a great time, but me and Dave were ready to come home. We're not those. We're country boys at the end of the day.
I'm going to see if Dave wants to come on here after you next week because I think it would be a good follow-up. He's very quiet. Yeah. I'm fortunate enough to get to go hang out with him and eat dinner. And but even then, he's quiet.
Yeah, he
so
is.
I don't know if we're going to be
That's what makes us so perfect. I'm the loud, where he's my yin and I'm his yang. You know what I mean? I'm the loud, crazy one, and he's the one that keeps us grounded, and that's why our relationship works. It's just that at the end game, we both are perfectionists at what we do. We both are hard workers, and we're both passionate of what we do. But at the same time, I'm crazy and wild, and he is the quiet guy that doesn't. He's okay with not being noticed. But I've been doing this since we opened. I'm like, you got to be on this podcast with me. He's like, I don't want to be on it.
I know.
So you're gonna be on it. And then he's like, all right, we got a TV crew coming. I don't want to be on it. You're gonna be on it. And he would get mad at me.
Yeah.
But now it's like, and now the other day Blake saw what I did. He's like, oh, you dirty rat. So we were talking, and we had the film crew both on us, and I was talking, and I accidentally said, hey, I gotta go do something real quick. And I left him there. So he had to talk for like 15 minutes by himself. And I know it made him uncomfortable, but I tell him this is just as much as yours as it is mine, and that you need to, people need to know who you are as well. And I think he's starting to kind of loosen up a little bit. He still wants to stay, but I make him now. I'm like, dude, you got to be noticed. You got to, you got to be, you're the other part of Burnt Bean that, that doesn't want to be known. And he said that from the beginning. He told me, Ernest, I'm in for this ride. He goes, with you. I know I'm going to support your dream. He goes, but at the same time, I kind of like my privacy and I like to be quiet. And I'm like, well, it ain't going to work if we get it where we're going to be. You're going to have to get used to the limelight.
I know it's interesting. I have a business partner that works almost exactly the same, and I won't even say his name. Right. He handles all the back end kitchen stuff. He is an expert in the kitchen, and he's an expert on a bunch of things, but he doesn't want, if you pulled a camera out,
that's how Dave just goes, and he's like, oh shit, there's a camera, But now I think he's starting to loosen up. I think, but he does feel more comfortable when it's both of us on than just one of each other. So we're going to get there. We still got a long way to go. So I love the guy to death. And I told him right when we were going to open the barbecue restaurant, I told him, look, dude, I know this is going to be a crazy ride. I said, but if everything goes right, I said, you're going to be buying shit you never bought before. I said, you're going to be having things you never had before. You're going to get a social status in this community like you've never done before. And people are going to look at you a lot different. And his goal, I remember, he's like, we started getting all these awards right off the bat when we opened. He goes, my dream is to get Citizen of the Year. I'm like, why? He goes, because everybody that's cool gets one. Okay. And what did we just get this past year?
Yeah. I always like how he has his offhanded comments. I'd like to win Citizen of the Year.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. And then when we got it was funny because we got nominated, and I was like, dude, are you coming? He was at the restaurant. He's like, well, I got 2 more briskets. I'm like, you're stalling. I know you're stalling because they should have been done by now. And then I told him, he was just waiting. And then I said, dude, we won. He goes, all right, I'm on my way. So he didn't want to be there. If we didn't win, he didn't want to be there. But if we did, he was coming over. So I was like, this guy. But I know Dave. You know, Dave, I think I know him as much as his wife does.
Oh, I understand. That picture that they put up the other day of him not wanting to be in the limelight with the light shining down from the barbecue pits was great. You guys are always constantly pushing, you know, to be better and better and work a ton of hours. How do you guys as a business just avoid getting burnt out?
I tell people I don't get burnt out. Dave, yes, he needs his time. I asked for this. At the end of the day, I asked for this. I don't get burned out. You know, I made a quote the other day, actually yesterday, you know, let me read it to you.
It was on Facebook, and I was typing this note on here, and then I scrolled across your Facebook.
Yeah, it's called Tired with a Meaning. It's not a burnout without direction. You know what I mean? It's, you know, when you're working hard, you can't get burnt out with something that you're being, you know. And
you did ask for it.
Yeah, I did ask for it.
You asked for it, and you work every day towards it.
Yeah, and that's why I tell Dave, you know, Dave's a trooper, and I said, dude, go be with your family. Dude, go this. I asked for this. This is my end game. I said, you came for the right. I'm not asking you to sacrifice as much. You did at the beginning, which I asked, but now go enjoy life. This is what I asked for, and I'm gonna. It's not work to me. It's like my opportunity. I smile. You know. I wake up every morning, and when I wake up, I'm happy. And the reason why I'm happy is because God gave me another day of life, and I get to do what I love. And people don't understand that when I fucking love what to do, that I'm excited. Like that's why my wife knew I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. That I couldn't even. I used to complain getting up at 7 to go watch my daughter play softball, but I will wake up at 12:30 with 2 hours of sleep without batting an eye and get up and do it. Not because I'm kicking and screaming. I'm excited because it's another opportunity to tell the world why I'm number one. Yeah, and that's what I do.
You know, and that's the nice part for these people that go visit you at the Bean is they get a few minutes with you at the front, and they get to, this rubs off on people when you're contagious on your passion of the food, and these people are going to be asking you about food, and you just give it to them, and they take that, and I love seeing it. And you mentioned working the tables and walking the tables. 9 times out of 10, you'll take a little break. You'll go hit every single table, and so your passion about this is definitely contagious, and they can see it. And the other thing is you're approachable. Right. You're not standoffish. And I like to joke with Dave sometimes, and I don't know if I say, I'm like, you're a celebrity, you know? Mm-hmm. And Dave's like, yeah. But like you're an actual celebrity, especially in the barbecue world. And so it's, but you're approachable, you're kind. You always have words of wisdom for people. You know, you'll take pictures, and that's a nice thing for you to do. And a lot of people in your position, I mean, cut the meat, give them an attitude, move along.
Yeah, well, you got to remember, too, that, you know, they came to visit you at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. It's like going to Franklin's, and Franklin's not there. That's a letdown. Yeah. That's why I try to be there 99% of the time is they're coming to the Bean. They really want to come and see the Pope. They want to take a picture with the Pope or just see him in action. Like, holy shit, he's right there.
And one of the things that I like to tell my restaurant people about is we're in the hospitality business, which means to host. Exactly. They're coming to your house and you're hosting, you know, you want to give them an experience from start to finish. Yeah. And you guys y'all guys do a fantastic job at it. So, what would Mr. Cervantes, if you were looking back at your 20-year-old self, what were you doing when you were 20?
I was getting into trouble.
In Uvalde?
No, in San Marcos. Oh. Yeah, so I was getting in trouble. I was typical kitchen guy, you know, living the rock star life, you know, getting high and drunk and then doing it all over again.
Damn, that kitchen life, like the kitchen gets kind of wild back
I tell
there.
people the kitchen life is as close to being in jail or in the pen that you can ever. To get respect, you got to give respect, and you got to, there are a bunch of savages back there.
They are.
Yeah.
So what would the Pope of BBQ tell his 20-year-old self, knowing what you know now?
Keep working and don't give up. You should see the beautiful view.
Yeah.
You know, it's a beautiful view.
Yeah, it's I've been hearing that advice from everybody that sits across from me, and it seems very consistent, and it's put in the steps.
Yeah, you got to put it in the grind. And, I would tell myself, if I could go talk to myself at my 20-year-old and then 30-year-old and then 35. And then, now it's like I just keep on doing what you're doing. Don't give up. And you'll enjoy the view because it's beautiful. And I'll just leave it like that because it gives them hope. Because at the end of the day, when you're 20, especially 25, when you just married and you're about to have a kid, you have really nothing. All you can live on is hope.
Yeah.
It's got to be better than this. You hope it gets better than this. And at the end of the day, you can't blame anybody but yourself. And when you work hard for something as much as I have, that took 18 years, I never gave up. And I think that's why my parents get so emotional. My wife sat in the front row and saw the whole process, so she enjoyed the whole ride. But you had your parents there, and they're just in awe that she, even no matter how many adversities. I tell people I've had more disappointments than victories. Even ask Dave. Dave's like, "Aren't you excited?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Why aren't you excited?" I say, "Because I've had so much disappointment in life. I'm so used to it." That I don't get myself excited anymore. If it happens, then I'll do it. But he goes, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I've been so disappointed and been told no so many times that I become numb. And the only one that I always tell people, I don't get lucky. I control my own fate by how hard I work. And my odds get a little bit better." But he realized that in a lot of things because there was things that he thought we were going to win, or he thought we were going to be successful, and then we got disappointed, and it was all politics or certain. He goes, "But we worked harder. Our food was better." I'm like, "I know, but that's the way the cookie crumbles."
Don't you feel as I used to tell people as an entrepreneur, I feel like I got hit in the nuts with the bat every single day.
Every day. And we're idiots that get up and do it all over again. And that's the thing about being an entrepreneur and a small business owner is we work off holding our breath and saying, what kind of day is it?
And hope.
Yeah, and hope. And that goes back to what I said. It's about hope, because at the end of the day, that's all we have is hope. And when you get to that level of entrepreneurship as well as a small business, now talking to you if you become successful and you move up to the next level, when you have that small business and you're living paycheck to paycheck still and reinvesting everything you have into something that you believe in, it can still fly on your face, and then you go bankrupt, and then much less, let's get into the restaurant industry, which has the worst statistics of them all. And not only that, let's throw in COVID at the same time. And I remember my dad saying, "You left a 6-figure job to open a restaurant." I'm like, "Yeah, Dad." I said, and I looked at him dead in the eye. I said, "Dad, if I can't survive during COVID, I have no business running a restaurant." I said, "I've waited all my life for this for 20 years, 26 years. Well, now 26, but 20 years to get to this. I am prepared for anything that comes at me."
He made a good point. It's kind of like what will we tell our kids if they said they want to open a restaurant?
Right.
And we would look straight at them and say no.
I can't say that because that's what my daughter's doing right now.
And we would say no, and then we would start thinking, hey, if you want to do it, you know what it's gonna take.
Yeah, my daughter's lived through it. She's going to culinary school. She wants to be a chef. She's seen it. She's had different compared to me, that I had my grandma's that I was there once in a while. She lived through it since she was crawling. She was crawling in my kitchens. So she knew what it's going to take and has to do. She sees the sacrifice her dad has done, how many things he hasn't been to because I was always working. She saw that and she's willing to accept it. But my end game too with her is one day when she opens hers, I can be her sous chef.
Well, she's gonna have a nice sous chef for sure. And those items coming out on the menu, no doubt, are gonna be top notch. Yeah. One of the things that you've brought up to me before that I really like, and I'm gonna put on an event at the hangar pretty soon. That's how to start your own business and just basics. What's in a name? How do we market? LLC, DBA. Where do I get those? How do I get my first customer? Invoice. And so I'm gonna put on an event here in the next, maybe month or so. And One of the things that you've told me that I like to point out to people is that people will be putting on events and things aren't always lining up how they want. And then they contact Burnt Bean and they say, we're having Burnt Bean at the event.
Right.
What's been your experience with that?
A prime example is Houston Barbecue Festival has their festival every year. And, they bring in a certain amount of crowd. They never sell out. The moment you put, hey, Burnt Bean is coming, they sold out. Mm-hmm. Everywhere we go, we tend to sell out places. Or the city, we'll give you as an example. Cindy has fundraisers here, and they never, due to budgets, they couldn't really afford us. And then one day someone said, hey, we're just going to do it. Mm-hmm. And they end up selling out. So now every time they have a function, they sell out. And it's not because of our name, it's because of the quality of food they're going to get. At the end of the day, people want to know what they're going to get out of paying $50 a plate or whatever. Mm-hmm. And if it's inferior food, they're not going to be paying for it, even if it's for a fundraiser. But if they know they're going to eat good, they're going to probably do better. And then not only that, it's a win-win because when they're happy eating, they're going to bid better.
Right.
And, they get something out of it. And now, and that's the reputation the Bean has. When we go out there, it doesn't matter where we're at. The brand itself will sell itself. We don't have to dog and pony. We don't have to put it on billboards. We don't have to, that's one thing Dave and I, we've had 1 million awards, brother, and we've never posted them on a restaurant. I've had over 700 trophies and all these plaques and all this stuff. I could have put them on the restaurant like every other barbecue joint, but the focus is not on the awards. The focus is on the food. And that's the one thing. The only reason we have the Michelin up there is because it's a fucking Michelin.
That thing's so badass.
Solid. But other than that, we've won a lot of awards, and we've even number 4 in Texas when we went, we never put it up there.
I've been, we're
not that restaurant that does that. I think we're gonna have to get to the point where maybe in the hallway we'll put some of our accolades, but our focus is not. Dave and I are those guys that it's not about us. It's about the food.
Yeah,
it's about our team. We're not there for the limelight. We're there to. My grandma always said, "You stay humble and let your food walk with a big stick."
And it does.
And you don't have to put perfume in it. It speaks for itself.
It does.
And we don't have commercials, and we don't have influencers. We don't have publicists. We don't have public relations. We let it speak for itself.
Well, you never had to get them there, but you go to Burnt Bean, and every single time you go, there's people with cameras there. Mm-hmm. And it might be Texas Monthly. It might be Texas Country Reporter. Yep. It might be somebody from Brazil.
Yeah.
I mean, it is constant out there. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how you stay there and prep and do what you're doing with the cameras there every single day. You've probably had to adjust. Like, excuse me, let me go make the beans.
Tons of time. Like this past week, we had 3 different camera crews this week.
Are those guys that are going there with the cameras, are they trying to call you before, or are they just showing up?
You can't show up. You have to be scheduled in like this. Every week we have another camera crews coming in this week. You can't just show up. And a lot of food influencers, even at the beginning, they'd be like, oh, I got, 100,000 followers. I need a free meal and $300. And I tell you, go tell them, excuse my language, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And I said, you're going to I said, even the people that now it's like, they know they have to get in line unless I invite you, but I've never paid for a food influencer. I've never done that.
I've been watching a couple of I started following a lot of the barbecue guys after y'all won because I want to go try a bunch of these places. But how are the influencers' attitudes?
Most of them are really cool, but there's some that are cocky, and the ones that are cocky we don't deal with. And right now we have the upper game, and what the upper game is, I don't need you. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to come and eat here. You're going to come and eat here because you want to.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. We've never kissed ass to anybody.
Yeah.
The only one that we always worried about was Daniel Vaughn.
Yeah.
We've had New York Times in there. We've had, CNN. We have all kinds of stuff. But we don't care. We're so focused on what makes you different than the guy that just waited in line for an hour.
Yeah.
Now 3 hours. No, there's no difference.
I know, it's crazy.
I want to treat everybody the same.
I'm not waiting in line, and now it's 3 hours.
Yeah.
You should have come 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if I met Daniel Vaughn there or not one time.
I know Blake has, but I don't know if you have. I don't know.
I think I missed that time. But I got some buddies up in Lubbock that have some great barbecue, the Pitforks and Smoker guys. And that's what I like about it's business people in general, but the barbecue guys have a community. I've ran your food up to Pit Forks, ran Pit Forks back down here to you guys.
Yeah, those are good ribs.
So shout out to Isaac and Ashley out there, but they're doing it up in Slayton too. And
they're doing just as much grand as we are, man.
Yeah.
I tell people that the barbecue industry is a different type of animal compared to the regular restaurant.
Yeah.
Regular restaurant, you can show up at 7, put out breakfast.
I know.
We get there at 1.
God,
And there's some places that run like lunch and dinner, so they're there 24.
Yeah. It's up, man. Y'all work your tail off. Well, where can people find you at besides the restaurant?
You can find me nowhere else. You can find me on social media at the Pope of BBQ or the Burnt Bean Company. Very minimum social life. I'm, you're lucky to have me here.
I am.
I'm usually at home. I'm a homebody, and I just recuperate my body to get punished again for the next 2 days, 5 days. So today's my day off, and but yeah, I really don't go anywhere. I'm not a social butterfly. I stick to myself. I love my peace and I love my quiet.
Yeah. Well, it's been, one of the things that I like is that you guys not only won Texas Monthly, but it's not a week-long thing. Mm-hmm. It's not a month-long thing. Mm-hmm. It's a 4-year deal that you get to wake up every day and be thankful for.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and I do, we burned through an hour and 10 minutes here, but, I do appreciate you coming. It was worth the wait. I wanted, I had a feeling just by watching, hoping that y'all were going to win and seeing what y'all do every day. I'm going, how the fuck can they not win?
That's what we thought too.
Like, how can you do this and not win?
Right.
And that's the craziness that goes out of Ernest's mind that, again, I wanted to share with people. And so I thought, well, let's wait. And then Texas Country Reporter was there, JB. I'm like, JB, you have to know you work. And he looks straight at the ground and he goes, no, we don't know. And they were there. And so I'm glad. I really don't think it could have happened to a better group of people.
Right. Appreciate it.
And so I'm happy that y'all got 4 years to celebrate and perform. Mm-hmm. If the spotlight wasn't on you now or before, it is on you now.
I appreciate
for
it.
4 years.
You call it a spotlight, I call it a crosshairs behind my back.
Everybody's
coming for me.
Every single slice of brisket has a crosshair on it.
It does.
And so I appreciate you coming and doing this. The only way I could say thank you is maybe drop off some donuts. I do want to make a trip to Round Rock Donuts sometime.
Need to take a road trip.
Yeah,
Let's
we need to. And so Burnt Bean Barbecue, Ernest Servantes, the Pope of BBQ. Again, thank you for being here. Let's wrap it up, and we'll see you soon. Adios.